All right. Hey, good afternoon, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. This is your afternoon tropical update. We are still tracking a fairly busy Atlantic basin this afternoon. We no longer have Isaac or Joyce with us. They've both been succumbed to the Atlantic doing its thing. But we do have Tropical Storm Kirk moving into the central Atlantic basin as going to be a pretty strong storm as it moves northward, but it is not likely to impact the U.S. at all. AL91 following Kirk looks like it's going to also develop in probably about a 50-50 shot. It just recurves, maybe comes a bit further east and recurves. We're not really sure on that one yet, but it should kind of follow that same general path for the next couple of days. And other than that, we just have our area in the Caribbean that the Hurricane Center has been watching for some time. We've had a few changes in terms of timeline and potential outcome. We'll tell you what we do know and what we don't know. So looking at satellite presentation over on NOAA's website, there's been some data feed issues into some public websites like Tropical Tidbits. So we're going to use the actual NOAA viewer for this one, and I've got to unfortunately piece it together a bit. But we got a couple players going on here this morning. So we've got a tropical wave that has just left the Yucatan, and this is going to move over towards the Bay of Campeche, which is the southern Gulf of Mexico, this area right here. And it's expected to kind of hang out there for a couple of days, kind of along this little upper boundary that's moved across the Gulf. We have an upper level low across the upper Caribbean, upper Western Caribbean. This is kind of pulling up strong upper level winds across the area and is not going to let our storm develop in the short term. This is slowly moving back to the west, and it will kind of be over the Yucatan at week's end. And if we shift our attention down and back over here, so again, our upper level low we just showed you is right here. And then down further south, we've got an area of low pressure trying to develop in the southwestern Gulf of Southwestern Caribbean, rather. Stronger trade winds are moving into this area, and it looks like some background rotation is going to start in this area, and this whole weather system is slowly likely to lift northward along those trade winds, which are oriented basically like this. So this is all going to start pulling out of the Caribbean and moving to the north. Now, the question has become, when is this going to try to develop? Our models a couple days ago were pretty insistent by Wednesday and Thursday, which is what you're seeing here on the GFS, for potential development. However, the latest runs, which you can see here, don't really have any development. There's no closed low. There's no real strong background rotation. It's just kind of a big mess of weather because you've got our little tropical wave that's still oriented right here. You've got our low lifting out of the Caribbean, southern Caribbean, and then you've got your upper low in between that's kind of shearing our system in the near Honduras and Nicaragua. So you've kind of got a mess on your hands. And this is a lot more messy than our models initially thought. And also the GFS really overshot the early development. Again, why we don't take every GFS run as gospel when you see a hurricane 15 days out on the GFS, not to start running for the hills. This has happened a couple times this year. The GFS has been very good at generally finding areas that are trying to develop, but it often overdevelops them in the short term, and then it has to correct back, where the Euro usually starts too weak and then has to correct forward. So anyway, what we now believe is that this isn't going to develop in the next couple of days. This is going to move northward. We're going to put you on Friday afternoon, where we have our broad area of disturbed weather somewhere near the Yucatan. Still not anything organized, not a depression, not a storm, not a PTC, just a big mess of rain and some wind, and just kind of moving along. The questions that come up here are going to start to fall into a couple of different things. Number one, what is going on over in the southern Gulf of Mexico? The GFS is pretty insistent that we're going to have two different storms trying to form. This one as it moves north, and this one as it just sits down here. And then they're both going to try to move off to the east together. That's one potential outcome. GFS shows this here. You can see our system goes northward. We're into Saturday night now. We still have some rotation down here. We have rotation in the central Caribbean. Again, nothing organized yet. And I want you to look up to the north real quick. Look what's up north. Strong high pressure. This is a big, strong bubble of dry, nice, cool high pressure. This is not going to let whatever is here get out of the Gulf anytime soon. So people that are still trying to tell you that a storm is going to come up into the Carolinas and Georgia, just like Helene did, are full of it up to their eyeballs at this point. Okay, there is not another storm coming on the heels of Helene for the same areas that got hit the hardest by that hurricane. Okay, at most, maybe next week the Big Bend may have something to look at. But this high is mostly expected to hang out there through most of the weekend and into next week. And the upper air pattern is not going to let whatever's in the Gulf get very far out of the Gulf. So yes, the Gulf Coast states and Florida have something to watch, but the states to the north do not. Less than a quarter inch of rain is forecast for the Carolinas over the next week. Okay, it's going to be dry. It's going to be fairly pleasant. They're going to have the best weather they could hope for to get rescue operations and recovery operations underway. There is not another storm coming for that area. Okay, just once again to beat the drum on that one to make sure we're all clear. Back to the video. So you have this broad area of low pressure sitting in the Gulf of Mexico going into the weekend, maybe even into early next week. This is when about we think it might try to start to develop now. It sits over the Gulf for a couple days, maybe gradually acquires tropical characteristics, but we go into 0Z Monday, which is Sunday night. Okay, this is where the models are diverging right now. The GFS shows an elongated area of low pressure starting to become tropical, maybe a tropical depression or storm somewhere south of the Big Bend late on Sunday. But it's also developing this system down in the Caribbean. Remember our little tropical wave that goes over and just sits for a couple of days? By this model, it's been sitting for 5 or 6 days at this point, and the GFS actually has 2 lows spinning up at the same time. And then eventually, it takes them both across Florida. The Euro sees something different. This is the same time in space, both 0Z Monday, late Sunday night. GFS shows the 2 lows. European just shows the 1. I think the Euro has probably got a better handle on this in terms of this. I don't think that our second low, I doubt we're going to have 2 separate systems in the Gulf at the same time in that manner. It would be unusual. It's something we'll watch, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. But European kind of shows this kind of just broadly moving towards Florida over the week and bringing a lot of rain to Florida next week, but nothing very well organized. GFS does show something a bit more intense. The GFS sees a window for this to develop. It becomes a tropical storm, maybe potentially a hurricane, and then brings 2 storms up into the state of Florida and then kind of merges them into one. Again, this seems unlikely to me. I'm having a hard time buying this. I think the GFS is erroneously spinning this up way too much. And then this is probably going to be more the system we talk about. And the question is going to be going into the weekend, you're going to have something sitting right about here. What is sitting there? Is it more organized? Is it less organized? Is the wind shear too high? I can show you the Weather Nerd's background of wind shear overlaid on our spaghetti models from the GEFS ensemble. And it, again, shows a very good chance that something will be sitting here going into early next week. But notice how all these yellows and reds and whatnot are laid across the Gulf of Mexico. This is strong upper wind shear. So again, protects the Carolinas, protects the southeast U.S., and whatever does form will have to slowly drag towards Florida, but it won't likely have any avenue to turn northward towards the southeast U.S., okay? So, and again, this being here also likely limits intensity. Wind shear reduces the potential for intensity. So we're talking about a sloppier, broader, messier, and weaker storm. But I don't want to completely discount the potential for a tropical storm impact on Florida next week, or maybe even a hurricane. It's not out of the realm, but the odds are lower right now as we track this on Tuesday of this week. So this is going to be kind of a long-term play, guys. This is not going to be a short-term thing where we know in a couple of days what's going to happen. This isn't going to be like Helene where it lights off and then it's running at 100 miles an hour towards the coast. This is going to be kind of a mess going into next week. Not uncommon. October does this. Your first fronts get down here. You start mixing tropical moisture in fronts. It happens. Rainfall to come for the next 7 days for Florida. Definitely a lot of rain. This is about a week from now, so potential for 4 to 6 inches of rain across central Florida in the Tampa area, 2 to 4 inches across the Big Bend area where cleanup is ongoing. Jacksonville getting on a couple inches of rain, and that rainfall potential also spreads along the upper Gulf Coast where pulses of moisture are going to push out of this and into this area. But then that front kind of keeps everything pretty much draped across the southeast in Florida and doesn't let it get developed. So this is going to be kind of a cloudy, rainy couple days across Florida going into the weekend, and then you still may have the potential for something a bit more tropical getting going and moving towards y'all next week, but it's a little too early to say exactly what or exactly when, but we do know the timing has significantly slowed down and the intensity still appears to be on the weak side. That's pretty much what I got for you today. We saw Tropical Storm Kirk out there. Expect to become a strong hurricane. Will recurve well to the east of Bermuda. Should become a major hurricane as it does so. We have Typhoon Krathon over in the Western Pacific. This is going to make landfall in southwest Taiwan, one of the only storms on record to do so, only about 4 or 5 in the last like 50, 60 years. It should be a pretty strong storm when it comes in. It's going to crawl across Taiwan for several days. So this is going to be a heavy flooding event for the island as this typhoon just slowly crawls across the region. So definitely not going to be a great time for them. This will eventually all pull up and recurve, but overall, that's pretty much what you've got going in the rest of the tropics. And again, I'm not worried about what's following Kirk right now. We'll just take that when and if it becomes an issue. So that's what I got for you guys today on your tropical update. We will keep watching it. I'll be a little less available later this week. We're moving around a little bit, moving from one place to another for a couple days, and then moving back, so it's going to be kind of a shuffle. But I'll do my best for regular video updates, and we will have all the updates consistently on the Facebook page. So until then, thanks, guys, for watching, and have a good one.